in the blood-soaked sands of the Coliseum, where the Roman sun burned hotter than steel, and the roar of the crowd drowned out even the last gasps of the damned, Kael did not beg for mercy. He roared. His body, marked with tribal tattoos that told stories of Germanic forests and forgotten gods, glistened with sweat and the blood of other men. The dark lines on his chest represented sacred trees, those rising on his arms, wolves on the hunt, those circling his neck, ravens as messengers of the dead. Each mark had been made with bone needles and charcoal ink mixed with his own blood, a rite of passage the Romans called savagery, but which, to his people, was living memory. His blonde hair, braided with crow bones and amber beads, whipped his face with every movement. In his hands, he wielded a spatha stolen from a fallen legionary, a long, straight-bladed weapon made for cutting, not thrusting. By the laws of the ludus, a barbarian should only use short, unbalanced weapons to guarantee a spectacle, not justice. But Kael had learned in his first weeks of captivity that rules are made to be broken by those with nothing left to lose. And there he was, Kael, the wolf of the Rhine, undefeated champion for 19 combats, the people's favorite gladiator, the nightmare of the senators, and, though no one knew, a prisoner of a pain the arena could not wash away. But that night, after decapitating a Thracian twice his height, Kael didn't hear the applause. He didn't feel the rush of victory. He felt only the weight of the invisible chains that bound him, stronger than the iron of the prison, heavier than the leather armor he wore in the arena, more suffocating than the smell of blood, sweat, and waste that hung in the air after every combat. Because the night before, a letter sealed with purple wax had arrived at his quarters in the ludus. Not by common post, gladiators had no right to correspondence. It was delivered by a street urchin, paid with a sestertius and a promise of silence. In it, just 3 lines, written with charcoal ink, as if the author feared being recognized by her handwriting. Come to the garden of nymphs at moonrise. Come alone. Come armed only with your truth. Livia. The name was enough to freeze his blood. Livia Drusa, daughter of Rome's most powerful senator, Quintus Drusus, a man who had sworn to exterminate all barbarians after his son's death on the Rhine frontier. The same Livia whose face appeared on the commemorative coins of the Flavian peace, minted after the suppression of the revolts in Germania. The same Livia whose engagement to Lucius Aelius Varro, grandson of one of Domitian's most loyal generals, had been announced just a month ago in a ceremony at the Temple of Venus. And now she was summoning him. Kael went, not out of desire, not out of hope, but from a hunter's instinct. He knew that any meeting with a patrician was a trap. In Rome, barbarians didn't love. They were loved like exotic animals until they became inconvenient. A gladiator who touched a woman of senatorial blood was crucified before dawn, his body left for the vultures as an example. But something in that letter had disturbed him. It wasn't an order. It wasn't an invitation to lust. It was a request. And requests in his native tongue were only made between equals. The Garden of Nymphs was at the back of the Drusus Palace, high on the Palatine Hill, where the air smelled of cypress, night-blooming jasmine, and the light touch of salt carried on the wind from the Tiber. Fountains murmured among marble statues, nymphs with empty eyes, arms outstretched as if still waiting for offerings. Kael, dressed only in a dark tunic borrowed from a freedman of the ludus, and the bare-bone amulet his mother had given him before she was burned alive by legionaries. So the spirits may guide you, even in darkness, moved between the shadows, avoiding the watchman's posts. She was waiting for him under a trellis of wild grapes, seated on a stone bench covered in moss. Livia wore no jewels, no white lead makeup or kohl around her eyes like the women of the court. Her brown hair was loose, bound only by a ribbon of blue silk, the color of senators' children. Her green eyes, large and weary, fixed on him as if they had known him for lifetimes. She wore a simple stola of white linen, but the fabric didn't hide the tension in her shoulders, the slight tremor in her hands, the posture of someone carrying an invisible burden. "You came," she said without surprise. "Why did you call me?" Kael asked, his voice harsh, still marked by the Germanic accent the Ludus trainers had tried to beat out of him with whips and punishments. "Because I've watched you fight, not like an animal, like a man who chooses to kill. We all kill to survive. No, you kill with honor. You leave the wounded alone. You spare those who fall to their knees. That is an instinct. That's conscience." Kael laughed bitter. The sound echoed between the columns like a lone wolf howling at the moon. "Conscience is a Roman luxury. I am a barbarian, a blood sport toy, a dog trained to bite when ordered." "Then why did you weep the night you killed the young Gaul, the one who wore his mother's necklace?" He froze. No one had seen that. He had been alone in the training yard after the combat, washing the blood from his blade. The Gaul had, around his neck, a small amulet of carved wood, identical to the one his sister wore before she was sold into slavery. Kael had kept it, hidden under a stone in the floor of his prison cell. "You spy on me. I see you." She took a step forward. The moonlight silvered her face, highlighting the shadows under her eyes, eyes that carried their own kind of prison. "My father has sold me in marriage to a man who kills slaves for sport. My fiancée touched me once, and I was sick afterward. In Rome, women like me don't have souls. We are bargaining chips, political alliances, bodies for heirs." She paused. Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost inaudible. "But when I see you in the arena, I see someone who still feels, and it reminds me that I too am human." Kael didn't answer immediately. He studied her. He saw not an arrogant patrician, but a woman surrounded by golden walls, just as much a prisoner as he was, only with chains of silk and promises of power. "What do you want from me?" he finally asked. "One night, just one. No names, no titles, just two bodies that refuse to be things." He should have refused. He knew it was madness. A gladiator who touches a patrician is crucified before dawn. But when she held out her hand and her fingers almost touched his, Kael felt something he hadn't felt since childhood. Desire that came not from hunger but from the heart. "If I am caught." "No one will know," she whispered. "The garden is our secret." The night was brief, fierce, sacred. There were no words, only touches, glances, the warmth of two bodies that, for an instant, forgot who they were. Kael discovered that Livia had scars, not on her skin, but in her soul. She discovered that beneath the tattoos and the fury, Kael had gentle hands and a kiss that tasted of salt and freedom. When the first ray of sun touched the garden columns, she whispered, "Come back tomorrow." And he did. And the next day, and the one after. What had begun as an escape became a necessity. What was desire became obsession. Kael fought in the arena with more fury, not for glory, but to return to her. Livia, in turn, used her influence to ensure he received the best doctors, the best weapons, even a separate room in the Ludus. She claimed it was to keep Rome's most valuable asset in shape. But everyone knew, the Wolf of the Rhine had a new owner. The problem was that, in Rome, nothing stays secret. The betrayal came from within. One of Livia's slaves, bribed by her fiancé, Lucius alias Varro, followed Kael to the garden. Lucius was not just a wealthy senator. He was an ambitious, cruel, and deeply insecure man. He knew Livia despised him. He knew the people adored the barbarian gladiator. And worse, he knew his grandfather, General Varro, had been humiliated by Kael in the arena years before, when he was still a novice. A combat that ended with the general being dragged out, defeated by a savage. The next morning, Senator Drusa summoned the gladiator to his triclinium. The old patrician sat, a cup of sweet wine in hand, his eyes cold as Tiber marble. Beside him, Lucius watched Kael with a predator's smile. "You touched my daughter," Drusa said bluntly. Kael did not deny it. "She summoned me." "She is a Drusa. You are a war dog. This is not love. It is contamination." She is more human than all the Romans I have met." Drusus laughed, a dry, joyless sound. "Then listen well, barbarian, you will have a choice. Tonight in the arena you will fight 10 armed Beshkarai. If you win, Livia will be officially promised to her fiancé tomorrow, and you will be freed and exiled forever. If you lose, well, your body will be given to the dogs, and I will tell my daughter you betrayed her with a slave." Kael clenched his fists. He felt the bare amulet warm against his chest. "And if I refuse? Then I kill you now, and she marries tomorrow." Lucius leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. "And perhaps I will let her watch you die slowly." That night the Coliseum was packed. They said it would be the end of the Wolf of the Rhine, 10 men against 1, no chance. But Kael fought like an incarnate Germanic war god. He used the sand, the sun, even the crowd's screams as weapons. He killed 7 with his sword, strangled 2 with chains, and broke the neck of the last with a sharp elbow strike. When the dust settled, he was standing, bleeding, panting, alive. The crowd roared. Even Domitian in the imperial box applauded. But Kael did not look at the emperor. He looked at the Drusus family box. Livia was there, pale, her eyes full of tears. Beside her, Lucius smiled, certain of his victory. Kael knew his fight wasn't over. That night, Livia fled. With the help of a Greek freedman who owed her father favors, an old slave she had taught to read in secret, she stole family jewels and boarded a merchant ship bound for Alexandria. She left a letter for Kael, delivered by a street urchin. "If you love me, do not follow me. My escape is your freedom. Live for me, for us." But Kael did not obey. 2 days later, using the gold he'd won from bets in the arena and his newly granted freedom, he bought passage on the same ship. He found her on the deck at sunset, looking out at the sea as if searching for answers in the waves. "You shouldn't be here," she said without turning. "You shouldn't have fled alone." She finally looked at him. In her eyes there was no fear, there was faith. "Rome will destroy us if we return." "Then we won't return." She touched his face, the scars, the tattoos. "And what will we do?" "We will plant wheat, raise children. We will forget we were a gladiator and a patrician. We will just be Kael and Livia." Years later, in a coastal village near Cyrene, a foreign couple lived in a simple stone house. He, a blacksmith with gray eyes and calloused hands, forged hoes and knives for the local fishermen. She, a language teacher, taught children to read Homer and Virgil, but also told stories of Germanic gods, of wolves and ravens, of forests that were never conquered. No one knew where they came from, but on full moon nights, the fishermen swore they could hear, coming from their house, the sound of a woman singing in Latin, and a man answering in Germanic. And sometimes, when the wind blew from the north, bringing the scent of pine and distant snow, Kael would stop his work, close his eyes, and smile. Because in the bloody heart of the empire, between chains of iron and silk, between lust and loyalty, between betrayal and truth, 2 enemies found something that Rome could never understand: love that doesn't ask permission. And that survives even when the whole world wants to see it broken. And in the sands of time, where empires fall and names are erased, only 2 truths remain: that he chose her when he could have fled, and that she loved him when everyone said it was impossible.